Hi there and welcome to another edition of the Leading Conversation. I'm very privileged to have with me former South African cricket coach, Indian cricket coach, South African cricketer and current Hobart Hurricanes coach Gary Kirsten. Gary, nice to be here. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks Tom.
So Gary, I'm going to cut straight to the chase, as you know. You took over a job straight from being a player, basically. At that stage, you're thrust into the limelight of the Indian cricket job. What were your absolute non-negotiables as an inexperienced leader at that stage?
So I was trying to formulate things, I suppose, and for me, the first thing that I knew that I had to offer was everything of myself as a human being. So if there was one thing that I was going to give the team, the Indian team, as a kind of a young guy, a young coach into that space, was work ethic. I just felt that if I could arrive there and just be absolutely non-negotiable on how hard I worked over that period of time, that would at least be a starting point to be able to build some credibility within the space.
Great. And 9 years later, I think it is, you've had some ups and downs. What would you say are your non-negotiables now, if they differ at all?
Yeah, probably not much, because I think I took a lot of those non-negotiables from when I was a player. I've always used my reference point as a coach is what would I want to hear from a coach as a player, and I think for me, I've used a lot of those non-negotiables. But most importantly for me now is process. You know, are we as a team doing the kind of things every single day that set ourselves up for success? So for me, I'm always watching our daily behaviors and do they match up with what our value system is and where we want to go as a team.
It's really interesting you say process, because it's a question that's been on my mind is, in the work that you do under the spotlight, you know, in the limelight all the time, with press, media, opposition, all sorts of things trying to almost derail you in a way, how have you managed to stick to your process and your value system despite the pressure that comes with elite sports?
Very easily, because if you back what you are, what your philosophies are, and you back what you're doing with a team, it's easily not to be derailed, because you know that everyone else is trying to throw you off, and everyone else is trying to say you're not going down the right road, and your career and your success rests on what your beliefs are and how you think you can take a team forward. Now that might not be the right way to do it, but you've got to go in believing that it is the right way to do it, unless you're going to make a fundamental shift through the time that you are with the team. So I find that easy, because you've just got to stay on the page that you've been on from the moment you started.
I think a lot of people would want to know, because we can learn so much from it, is there an error or a series of error or a pattern of error that Gary Kirsten has made in his leadership career that you've maybe learned from or still are learning from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the one thing that I've learned from the most is the idea of coaching or leading each individual very, very differently, and understanding who that individual is. I've definitely had a coaching style and philosophy, and tried to dump a lot of that information on a group of players. Doesn't work for everyone. So it challenges me and who I am and my personality and my leadership style, that there are certain individuals that I've got to manage in a way that might not be necessarily that comfortable for me.
So a lot of people will say, you know, tailor your approach to different individuals. You're working in a space where you've got about a 10-day preseason and then a very short tournament, and I think that's prevalent in a lot of spaces. What's your mechanism for getting to know people so that you can manage them effectively within the constraints of time?
Yeah, very difficult when you're wanting to build relationships from scratch. So I've tried to begin that process before I even arrive there, but it isn't easy. So how do you build trust in a two-way relationship when you have very little time to connect with those players? So what I do, focus of attention is on trying to build an environment where you feel that you're giving as many players in that team the best chance to be the best of themselves or to optimize their own performance. I think that's the best we can do.
Great, Gary. The concept of fear is a fascinating one, because I think a lot of us are at times consumed by it. your relationship with fear as a leader, and also your relationship with fear in terms of what you've seen in people that you have led, and how you've worked with it.
So the fear, really, I think that exists in most people is that fear of performance and expectation, that we don't live up to other people's kind of view on us in many ways. And I think when you can release yourself of that, it opens up a kind of a freedom of expression that we're all searching for. But we kind of got to get to that space. So I've lived with that fear as a coach, because I need the wins and I need the performances to show to people that I'm good enough at what I do. But the kind of more you become comfortable in your own skin and your own space, that you are a coach trying to add value to a team and other people's lives, and the more comfortable you are there, then I think you can just give the best of yourself, whether it's right or wrong. And that for me is very important, because I don't think we're always going to get it right. But if you can give the best of yourself and your thinking without fear of what people might think or what the result might be, then you can move forward with a great freedom of expression and potential.
What's the greatest bit of feedback you've received from a player to you?
You're not being hard enough with me.
Really?
Yeah. It was the best feedback I ever got, because it made me realize that my philosophy and my thinking doesn't necessarily work for everyone, and that I might have to go out of what my comfort zone is as a leader to get the best out of someone else.
That does bring me to the concept of honesty. We've spoken about honesty before, and how important it is, but how dangerous it is. Have you got any thoughts on honesty? I mean, that sounds like very honest feedback that you receive.
Yeah, I've been toiling with this idea of honesty, because I think often as a coach I haven't been completely honest with players when I need to give them some feedback. But saying that, I realize that the feedback is my opinion and it's my view. So my view might not necessarily be right. So one's got to be careful how honest you are, because as honest as you are, it's still only your opinion. So if I say to a player, for example, I don't think you can play under pressure, I don't know how they're going to respond to that. But who's to say that I might be right? So I've got to be careful in how I deliver that feedback. So I'm toiling with that idea of, am I very direct with the player in terms of what I think, because I'm the leader and my job's on the line? Or do I massage the information in a way where he can walk away and say, he makes a point and I've got to try and get better at it?
Great. Gary, I said I'll be short. I've got one last question. You have an opportunity to consult to South African sporting entities across sport, definitely not cricket. What is your first move if you're given that opportunity?
First of all, it would be an amazing opportunity. But I think for anyone who comes in as an outsider into a team environment across any format of sport that we would know, the first thing I'd do is just have a good look inside the environment and look at the relationships that are taking place with different people, and look at the energy that sits within that space. Is it a fake energy, or is there a real bigger purpose and bigger cause that everyone is representing within that team space? And I think that's quite easy to pick up. I don't think that would take too long. And then after that, then once you've kind of done a general diagnostic, then to kind of start having a look a little bit deeper and start having one-on-one conversations with people. And I think very quickly you can get a good idea of where a team is sitting.
Gary, thank you so much. It's been massively insightful, and I look forward to the next one.
Thanks, Tom.
Cool.